Hi, my name is Yunus Sadegiani, and I'm going to do a quick breakdown of the Reform's Contract with the People, aka Manifesto. And honestly, this is the best manifesto I have seen in many years because it's very bold and it's going after things that a lot of people care about, but the mainstream parties do not have the courage to say. So I'm going to go through them one by one. Scrapping of diversity, equity, and inclusion, which I think, again, is an amazing idea because we've replaced one form of discrimination with another. If you employ people based on diversity, equity, and inclusion, you're not hiring the best people. And the reason for that is that you have all these extracurricular requirements that have nothing to do with the job, okay? In a meritocratic society, you should hire people based on their skill set, not based on the fact that they are black or white or gay or lesbian or a woman, okay? And that's why I think diversity, equity, and inclusion has been a disaster because it forces companies into hiring people just to fill a diversity, equity, and inclusion box. But in a meritocratic, in a capitalistic, and most importantly, in a productive society, you cannot have diversity, equity, and inclusion. Okay? If 10 white people get the job done the best, so be it. If 10 black people get the job done the best, so be it that way. Okay? We should hire people based on their skill sets and based on their merits, not based on their race, sexuality, or gender. The Reform Party is the only party that is going after the globalists and things such as the World Economic Forum. And there's not a lot of people that do that. Okay? Not a lot of parties that do that. And one of the ways they are going after the globalists, because the globalists want to impose more control on us, is not to have a cashless society. Okay? When you have a cashless society, all your money is controlled by the banks. And let's say you have a social credit system in place like China, where you can get arrested or where they can freeze your assets if you just jaywalk. Let's imagine we have that kind of situation in the UK. You have no cash, all your money is in the banks, and you have a social credit system in which if you commit a misdemeanor, they can freeze your money in the bank so you won't have any access to your money. And that's exactly what the globalists want, is a George Orwellian 1984 type of dystopian future. And we don't really want that. The globalists want to impose more control, and Reform is the only party that is standing up to these globalists. Increasing the tax threshold to £20,000, which will directly affect 15% of the population. Think about that. The 15% poorest people in our society don't have to pay tax anymore, which is great news for students. It is great news for low-skilled labor. It's great news for people that work part-time. It's great news for maybe single mothers or mothers in general that, do some voluntary part-time work and they don't earn a lot of money. And that will directly benefit them because they will save £2,000 to £3,000 per year. Okay? Brilliant idea. At the same time, you have Labour, which will increase prices by £2,400 per median household per year. So who's the People's Party? One party, Reform Party, wants to cut taxes on the lowest earners. Another one wants to increase it. And this also coincides with the fact that the Reform Party wants to cut taxes on small businesses which earn less than £100,000 in profit per year. Again, directly benefiting the middle class. And as you know, economy only grows when the middle class grows. And the more disposable income the middle class have, the more they will end up spending that back into the economy. So again, Reform Party is the only party that is actually putting forward manifestos that will actually benefit the working class and the middle class. The Labour Party, which claims to be the People's Party, wants to increase taxes on middle and low class. So you tell me, which one is it? The People's Party. Is Reform the People Party or is Labour the People Party? Another brilliant idea, and this is something that I really agree with personally, is to ban gender ideology, ban the teaching of gender ideology in schools. And again, that is a great idea because what we're doing right now, we are indoctrinating our youth, our children, and we're telling them there's 100 different genders and that they can identify as anything they want, and this can change day to day. And that's a form of indoctrination. I have no problem against gay and lesbian people, but the LGBTQ movement has become an indoctrination institution where they brainwash people. And they, brainwash people to a point where they will have irreversible surgery. And they advocate for things such as, males competing in female sports, which is absolutely ridiculous. Gay and lesbian people have fought so hard for their rights, and LGBTQ is making a mockery out of that. Personally, I know many gay people that absolutely hate the idea of LGBTQ. They don't believe there's an unlimited different genders. They don't believe in the indoctrination. Okay? So again, but this also coincides with another point of this whole woke ideology, or this whole woke indoctrination of our youth, where we teach them gender madness of LGBTQ, critical race theory, identity politics, and all of these things should be scrapped. Because first of all, it's a lie, and second of all, it's brainwashing our youth into wrong way of thinking. Okay, and this will be one of the downfalls of the West. This whole woke ideology, especially if you teach it to young people, it will be the downfall of the West. And we are seeing symptoms of it now. We are seeing the symptoms with the whole LGBTQ, this whole pro-Palestine marches that we have, the marriage of queers for Palestine, which is absolutely ridiculous. Launching an inquiry into COVID-19 mask and vaccine mandates and leaving the World Health Organization. Again, another brilliant idea, because during COVID-19, people lied to us. They lied to us about the lockdowns. They lied to us about the mask mandates. They lied to us about the vaccines, and said that if you take the vaccine, you can't catch COVID anymore. Yes, you can. If you take the vaccine, you can't pass COVID. Yes, you can. And they basically forced people to take vaccines. Otherwise, they couldn't go to work. They couldn't travel. And now we know the whole thing was a lie. And the whole thing was actually perpetuated by World Health Organization. So the Reform Party wants to launch an inquiry into this and wants to leave institutions such as World Health Organization, which is a great idea, because I think all these institutions have outlived their purpose, and they lie, and they're all part of that whole globalist agenda that wants to impose more control, whether it is through a cashless society or whether it is through vaccines. Rising stamp duty to £750,000, which is great because it will help a lot of people get on the property ladder. At the moment, the stamp duty limit is 250,000. So people are paying 5, 10, 20 grand more just for stamp duty. And increasing that to £750,000 would actually help a lot of young people, or just people that, can't afford much to be able to get on the property ladder. Scrapping license fees for TV, which is a great idea, because A, no one watches TV anymore. Everyone's on an online streaming platform. And B, no one really trusts mainstream media. No one really trusts the BBC anymore. And that's because the BBC has spent years now lying to people. From COVID, back all the way to 2016, no one believes mainstream media, and no one watches mainstream media. So why should we pay a license fee for TV? Something that people don't watch and they don't really agree with anyway. And it's funny because the BBC has put this whole lie about reform, that all the reform supporters are bots. The mainstream media always lies to us about everything, and that's why the ratings are declining at a steady and rapid pace. Everyone's online, everyone's getting their news from other sources. Yes, I understand some boomers and some older generations still watch the TV. However, the majority of the public do not watch TV, so they shouldn't be paying a license fee. Leaving European Convention for Human Rights, which is a great idea, because one of the main reasons we have so much immigration in this country is because of our joining of European Convention for Human Rights. Because, for example, if you have migrants that come to this country and they say to us, oh, if I go back to my country, they will kill me, we have no choice but to keep them because we don't want to be breaking international laws. However, leaving institutions such as European Convention for Human Rights, which have outlived their purpose, and I also think the United Nations has outlived its purpose, the World Health Organization has outlived its purpose, it would free up the United Kingdom to make its own decisions, whether it is regarding migration, whether it is regarding a pandemic, whether it is regarding whatever else. Why do we need international bodies telling us what to do? Why can't we just make our own laws? So again, brilliant idea. So we have something called the Royal Commission for Social Care, which the Reform Party will implement in the first 100 days. And the reason for this is that majority of the funding in the NHS goes to the elderly. So they want to build something completely separate from the NHS that would look after the elderly, which would decrease waiting times and improve services for ordinary and younger demographic. So again, brilliant idea. And at the same time, another thing they want to do is that if you can afford private healthcare and if you're on the NHS and you don't want to wait months for a surgery or years or whatever it is, they will give you coupons or they will give you discounts to be able to use the private health sector. Abolishing ULEZ and targets such as net zero. So scrapping of net zero and ULEZ. Why is that important? Because the environmental hoax that we have at the moment is hurting the consumers, it's hurting drivers, it's hurting businesses, it's hurting everyone. We have to pay all these extra fees because we have an unrealistic goal of having a net zero by 2030. There's no way we're going to achieve that. And as I said, the environmental hoax that we've been fed, it's a lie. Okay? When you have net zero, you just export the CEO to another country. So, okay, we can't have it here, but they will end up going to China and they will create it there and they will grow their economy there and they will export the same amount of CO into the atmosphere and we live on one earth. So this whole thing is a lie. We're not getting rid of carbon emissions. We're just exporting it to other countries. And whilst we export it, we also export money to other countries. Okay? And that will make us poorer. We will use oil and gas for the next 20 to 30 years. I'm not saying we shouldn't look after the environment. However, the environmental threat has been overstated by a large margin, and we need to have a bit of both. We need to have fossil fuels, we need to have nuclear, we need to have solar panels, and we need to have green energy all at the same time. And we need to make that transition, but not so quick, over a longer period of time, so it doesn't hurt our economy. And this whole ULEZ and net zero is hurting our economy. Another policy like red tape, where you cannot hire people at a pace you want because you have to go through all these things, which is hurting businesses. They cannot hire and fire as they wish because they have all these legal frameworks. We need to get rid of over-regulation. That's the whole point. We are over-regulated in this country, and that's hurting businesses, and that's hurting our economy and our growth. So over-regulation is a bad idea. Big government is a bad idea. Labour is in favor of big government. Reform is in favor of small government. I understand the government has to interfere sometimes. However, you need to let the capitalistic economy grow organically. Too much intervention from the government hurts the economy. So they will also decrease crime, stopping and searching, and also increasing funding for the police, cutting energy taxes and tackling cost of energy. So one of the reasons we have such a living crisis at this moment in time is because we have an energy crisis and a cost of living crisis. And if we cut energy taxes, that will automatically bring down the cost of living. Tax relief of 20% on independent schools, which I said already. So if you don't want to go to public school and you can afford to go to private school, they will give you a 20% tax relief. Utilizing private healthcare, which I already mentioned. Another brilliant idea, and this is one of the reasons why I like reform, is that they will be supporting marriages and the family unit through the tax system. So it's bringing back traditional values. And I really do believe that the nucleus of a society is the family. Okay? Successful families, stable families are the cornerstone of a thriving society. What we've seen in the last decades is the breakdown of the family structure. People are not having as many kids. Also, we have to combine that with this whole woke ideology, toxic feminism. People are not getting married, people are not having kids. And I feel like that's really ruining our society. So we have to incentivize the family structure. And we can incentivize it through a tax system. You get married, you pay less taxes. You have children, you pay less taxes, which is a great idea. And lastly, or second to lastly, I should say, is the politically homeless are supporting Reform UK. Who is the politically homeless? The politically homeless are people that never affiliated with the party A, or they're affiliated with Labour, Conservative, Lib Dems, but they just do not like the parties and they do not see themselves in those parties because they are disillusioned by these parties. They realize that they're just a bunch of virtue signaling morons that are not really different from each other. If you really think about it, Conservatives and Labour are not that different. They are different sides to a same coin. And they might argue over some fictitious figures, but they're fundamentally the same party. They will both take us to hell. Labour will just take us there quicker, but Conservatives will also take us there. So if you want to vote for change and a real reform, you have to vote for the Reform Party. Okay? And we are getting a lot of the votes from the politically homeless. And as a matter of fact, the Reform Party is polling at second in the national polls. We've overtaken the Conservatives. And it's actually finishing second in a lot of Labour constituencies as well. So we might find ourselves in a peculiar position where we get millions of votes, but we don't have many seats in the parliament. So hence why I want to encourage everyone, the politically homeless, ex-Tory voters, ex-Labour voters, or current Conservative and Labour voters, to vote for reform. And the reason for that is that if you vote for Labour or Conservative, you will get the same thing that you have gotten for the last 14 years. Nothing will change, things will just get worse. So if you want real change, vote for reform. Because the Reform Party is the only party that will fight for your rights, that will stop the globalist movement, that will do all these different things that the average man cares about deeply. They are also politically incorrect. They say as it is. They are not liars. They don't have this whole virtue signaling thing. They try to do what's best for the country. I would say they are equivalent to Donald Trump's Republican. They are a strong party. They are populist. They are politically incorrect, and they say it as it is. They're not trying to virtue signal. They don't care about the whole woke ideology. They don't care about this whole diversity, equity, and inclusion. All they want to do is to have a thriving, rich society where everyone's a lot happier. And lastly, because the Reform Party is always categorized as a far-right racist party, which I think is absolutely ridiculous because myself, I come from a minority background. Okay, I'm a quarter Pakistani, half Iranian, quarter Turkish. And I actually came to this country when I was 13 years old, so I'm an immigrant. Okay, and I still support the Reform Party, okay? Not because they are anti-immigration, but because they are the common sense party. They say things that are not meant to be said, and they're not apologetic about it. They're not politically correct, and that's why the mainstream media doesn't like them. And that's why the mainstream media always tries to make them out as this racist far-right party, which they are not, okay? So it's ironic that our biggest donor is a Muslim entrepreneur by the name of Zia Youssef, that has gave hundreds of thousands of pounds to the party, which basically disproves the mainstream media's narrative that we are a far-right racist party. So on that note, guys, thank you very much for listening. Till next time.